The first bill is House File 194, Representative Knutson. That's your bill? And Representative Knutson is not a member of the Veterans and Military Affairs Division, so I will move that House File 194 is recommended to be re-referred to the Taxes Committee. Representative Knutson, begin your testimony.
Good morning. Thank you. Thank you, Chair Bliss. Thank you, Lead Zong, members of the House Veterans Military Affairs Committee, for giving me the opportunity to have this hearing on House File 194. This bill relates to the disabled veterans homestead property tax exclusion. The program provides a property tax benefit to qualifying veterans by reducing the value of their home for property tax purposes. Surviving spouses of disabled veterans continue to receive this exclusion benefit after the veteran dies until or unless the surviving spouse remarries. To qualify for the property tax exclusion, veterans must be honorably discharged from the U.S. Armed Forces and be certified by the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs as having a service-connected disability. I believe that there is a brief in everybody's packet from House Nonpartisan Research about this program. Disabled veterans apply for this exclusion through their county's assessor's office. When the legislature enacted this disabled veteran property tax exclusion in 2008, the exclusion amounts were as follows: $300,000 for 100% totally and permanently disabled veteran, $150,000 for a veteran with a 70% disability rating. The valuation exclusions have not changed since its creation in 2008. In that time, I'm sure we all are aware that property values of homes and homesteads have increased dramatically. According to the Consumer Price Index, $300,000 in 2008 is the equivalent purchasing power of $439,759.32 today. $150,000 in 2008 has the equivalent purchasing power of $219,879.66 today. These figures demonstrate the urgent need to increase the valuation amounts of disabled veteran homestead property tax exclusion. House File 194 increases the exclusion amount for 100% total and permanently disabled veterans to $400,000. The exclusion amount for a veteran with a 70% disability rating is moved up to $200,000. I have some testifiers with me today in support of this bill. And with your permission, we'd like to start testimony.
Thank you. Please state your name and begin your testimony.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Chair. I'm Trent Dilks, Legislative Director for the Disabled American Veterans Department of Minnesota. I appreciate the opportunity to testify on this. I've been working on this property tax issue for 10 years. And we've had some significant changes we've been able to do. We added recipients for those who died as a result of the surviving spouses of those who died as a result of their service, DIC recipients. We were able to get rid of the 8-year time limit on it. And we were able to really address some other things that used to expire, and surviving spouses, mostly widows, would find themselves facing a property tax bill 8 years after their veteran passed away. During that time working on those issues, this was kind of always out there. It was out there as the cap, but I would get 1 or 2 calls. And it was kind of easy to say, hold on, we're working on some other issues. We're trying to take care of surviving spouses. We're trying to get rid of the 8-year limit so they don't lose their home after they lose their veteran. Within the last 2 years, this has become the #1 call I get from veterans. 4 out of 5 calls is about this issue. It's no longer just affecting a few veterans in some of the more costly areas of Minnesota. It's affecting and impacting veterans all across Minnesota. It's affecting and impacting surviving spouses. I just looked at the most recent number, and a surviving spouse of a veteran who dies as a result of their service will see a 59% decrease in the monthly pay that comes from the VA for benefits. And now they're seeing that the exclusion that we fought so hard to make sure they got is lessening and lessening in value every single year. 17 years is a long time to not address this. This is not even inflationary, as the representative pointed out. This is sub-inflationary to what it would have been and the original intent of it. So it's not an expansion. It's just trying to catch it up a little bit with the time. We do support the increase of this amount. I'm hearing from so many different ones. I just had a Vietnam veteran who had called me, and he is terminally ill as a result of his exposure to Agent Orange. And his concern, he bought his house with his wife right after he got back from Vietnam in the early 1970s. It happens to be in an area of the metro where values have gone up and up. The home is still modest. It's you know, where they raise their families. And now as he looks at leaving behind his surviving spouse in the near future, he is very afraid that when she sees the reductions in benefits, she will not be able to afford the property tax bill and the modest family home that they have lived in, and she won't be able to remain there. I'm getting calls like this over and over from veterans and from widows and surviving spouses. There are some additional changes, and I've talked with the author of this bill about it, that we'd also like to see addressed. And hopefully either this one on the next stop, I know there will be other legislation, an opportunity to put in an amendment, but we need to make some technical changes. There's the word honorable throughout this throughout this statute. And it throws into confusion because if you're receiving 70 to 100%, your service has been deemed honorable for the reason of benefits. Now, there are a lot of different technical reasons, medical discharges, general discharges. People were thrown out, maybe it was during COVID or those sorts of things. And the DOD takes a long time to upgrade discharges. They're focused on people who are currently in. So if you were kicked out under Don't Ask, Don't Tell, you might wait 10 years before, because the law says they have to upgrade it, but it might take them a decade. What I'm saying is anybody who's been rated 70% or greater in Minnesota has already had that reviewed by experts and has been deemed honorable service for the reasons of benefits. So asking assessors to wade through all of that and the technicalities and the language is something we'd like to see resolved. We already have, they must have been service connected at 70%. So I'm hopeful that we can get that amended in at the next stop. As well as some other equal or lesser value. That was a bad compromise 7 years ago, 6 years ago, when we put it in there for surviving spouses. Ultimately, they have earned this benefit. They have the right to it, and we'd like to see them be able to utilize it properly without having, again, to put extra stress on the assessors' offices and things like that. It becomes technical when they're moving across state and into new counties and looking at home values across different markets. And as far as the increase, we're fully supportive of getting an increase. We would like to see if there is a way to try to fix it so we don't have to come back in 3 years. It wasn't done, and now it's been 17 years. So obviously progress is slow sometimes around here, and we would just as soon get it fixed once and try to get it attached to a specific measure that monitors property tax and escalates with it. And as far as the fiscal impact, that's the last thing I'll say. As I'm compiling the numbers, I will give them to the committee here. I don't have the report ready, but as you look at the county by county breakdown and those with properties that are over 300,000, and once you get outside of the 7-county metro, the property tax shift is minimized because median home values are still 220, 230,000. So we hear some complaints out of maybe some of our greater Minnesota counties, some concerns about this, but as we dig into the numbers, we're not seeing a great shift in those. And in the counties where the biggest shifts would happen with the values over 300,000, a much larger property tax base, which keeps the percentage of the shift extremely low. Mr. Chair, I will get those numbers out to you and for disbursement to the committee as I go through a county by county breakdown. I'm working with the Minnesota Department of Revenue Property Tax Division, so I'm actually able to take a look at every single property in these counties, what their value, assessed value is, and how much would be impacted. So that's more to come, but I appreciate the opportunity to testify at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Dilks. We have some questions, but we're going to hold off till all of their testifiers are through.
Sure.
So,
Guy, do you want to-
and when you come to the table, please state your name and start your testimony.
Good morning, Chair Bliss, committee members. My name is Guy Singh. I grew up in a small town, middle of a cornfield in St. James, Minnesota, and joined the United States Army right after high school, came back to Minnesota 20 years later, and now I'm a county service officer in Rochester, Minnesota. Just like what Trent was saying, as a service officer, I see so many Vietnam veterans and their surviving spouses on a daily basis. And I think this is where it's most impactful. There's just a lack of earned income. And as you could tell, and you heard about the increases of property values, it's going through the roof. In Olmsted County, we have a median home value about $327,000. And I think we have 72,000 homes and 607 military members that are veterans and surviving spouses that take advantage of this benefit. So I don't see it's a huge ask for these service members. For my experience using the benefit in a very unstable portion of my life, leaving the military, coming in back into the civilian world, this benefit was extremely valuable to me. Me trying to come back into the civilian world after being in the shelter of, or the umbrella of the military, the U.S. Army, and trying to find what was right for me for employment. So with my family, it's been a huge benefit. Everything gets focused on them now with kids' activities, and I got a 9-year-old and a 12-year-old that just can't stop eating. So, yeah, and that's really all I have to say, unless there's some questions for me.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. We'll, if you just hang around for a little bit, we'll get to questions in a little bit. We have one more testifier, I believe.
Thank you.
And when you get to the table, please state your name for the record and begin your testimony.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and committee. My name is Bret Sample. I'm the Executive Director of Forgotten Heroes Ranges and Retreat. It's a range we're building for wheelchair and amputee veterans to use for free. We have the Air Force building it, and we just raised the money for the materials they need. Now, the other thing I'll say is I'm also an Aiken County Commissioner. And in Aiken County, we're one of the poorest counties in the state. And a big problem I have is I have a veteran. When he bought his house, it cost him $89,000. Today, that house is valued at $312,000. He has the same scenario. He has Agent Orange. He's getting ready to pass. His widow is going to struggle when she gets about $1,600 a month. Now, they stood on the wall for us when we asked them to. They didn't have a choice. They got drafted. And they gave up their life at home to stand on the wall for us. So I'd highly ask you guys to increase that 100,000 to 200 to 300,000 to 400. We're looking at it hasn't been increased in 17 years. And if you want to look at who the true heroes are, it's not just the people that put the uniform on. It's their spouses. The ones that raised their families when they were gone, that watched the TV at night to see if they were going to be on it. So I would highly encourage you guys to look at it. I ask you that as somebody that works with disabled veterans and as a county commissioner. And that's all I got.
Awesome.
Thank you, Mr. Sample. Are there any member questions? Representative Ray Rauer, is that correct?
That is correct. Thank you. Thank you, Chair, Thank you, Representative Knutson. Thank you, testifiers. I just want to, it's really just a comment. Representative Jerry Newton did share this as a bill that he supported last session, wanted to see it come back again, so I'm very glad Representative Knutson has this ready to go. Our disabled vets and spouses, we need to make sure that they can afford to stay in their home, and this is one way to be able to do that. So just urge support for this bill. Thank you.
Are there any further questions? Any discussion on the bill? Representative Knutson, closing comments?
Yep, I just wanted to say, thank you again for letting us have this bill hearing. And thank you for your comments, Representative. This is long overdue. We owe our veterans, our disabled veterans this. So I hope that we can pass this out of this committee and move it on its journey. So thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Representative Knutson. I renew my motion that House File 194 is recommended to be re-referred to the Taxes Committee. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries, and House File 194 is referred to Taxes.